Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, December 20th, and this is Morning Market Movers, where we do live analysis for day trading and we look at hotspots in the markets for the day. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me from Keep Trading Simple, Brian Caprice. What are we looking at today? Top line, real quickly. Omicron is taking over and it's shaking the markets. We've got oil dropping significantly. We've got equities dropping. Everyone is trying to determine, how severe is this impact going to be. We've got parts of the globe locking down again. The Netherlands, Ireland. There's challenges, and it will probably gum up the works a bit for supply chain, and we're still trying to fight inflation. It's not pretty. It is definitely not pretty. So the markets are trying to figure out what that means. It's also Christmas week. And we know that the markets are going to start being thin as people start traveling for the holidays. So before Brian and I jump into it and really take a look at oil and equities, I do need to share this disclaimer that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. As I mentioned, we've got oil dropping. We're going to take a look at levels in oil. We're going to take a look at levels in the equities, and then we're also going to do a trade setup this evening. Australia does have their Australia is doing. God, my mind goes like the monetary policy, and so we are going to take a look at the Australian dollar potential trade setups. That's coming out tonight at 7:30 Eastern. All right, so. I definitely need more coffee this morning. Brian, where's my coffee? I need
it's okay.
my coffee.
You'll survive.
Can you email me some coffee right now? All right, Brian, I'm going to flip it over to you. Let's take a look at what we got. So, some of the news headlines, and then equities and oil is really where it's at.
Yeah, as you said, all of our headlines right now are pretty much triggered with kind of Omicron-based news. Currency front, really nothing big. The euro is up a little bit in the overnight versus everything else. I would say the euro is probably the strongest currency right now. The CAD is obviously also weak as well. You see the dollar CAD at 41, 42 pips up. But if you look everywhere else, the dollar is pretty much flat to zero, nothing. Oil is down very, very big today. And again, because it is supply and demand driven, locking down is not a great term. And it's interesting. OPEC Plus has all their comments about, we're not doing anything in January. We see there's still risk. It's kind of coming true, right? They're looking at this drop right now and saying, good thing we didn't say we'd release more oil, But again, you're seeing news out there, again, there was some other news about Biden's Build Back Better, whatever the tongue twister support bill.
Manchin is not going to support it, so they're going to have to go back to the drawing board a bit.
And he said, I can't make it work. Republicans are obviously unified on one side, and having a Democrat switch, it flips it over to it's not going to get done. And also, interesting thing about the story over the weekend is Mr. Sanders had some very pointed and harsh comments, and it's interesting. Like I said, I thought politics was above the name calling, but he was throwing some names out there, and they're trying to get a vote too. And they said, we're going to make this a political issue next year. So I don't, it's one of those things. It's interesting that, when you see inside of a party, strife back and forth, when people are like, no, I just can't do it. It's not enough. It's not for me. And again, when they said, we're going to make this a voting issue. So they're basically doing a vote that they know they can fail so they can tell their constituents, I voted for it. So it's like, just get it done, We'll see. But again, that's not helping the U.S. stock market. And then again, as you mentioned, everything. Turkey's main stock index tracks 5%, triggered circuit breaker. Germany may shrink this quarter because of COVID. Aussie pound struggles as Omicron and lockdown fears come in. Data from this weekend in Canada, you can see that it's up. Netherlands, they track it. They're saying that every 2 to 3 days it's doubling. And they say this could be worse than the original Delta push, were the first one we saw. I know where I live, at least. Where I live, we have one county has already gone full virtual until January 15th, which was like a surprise for everybody last week. Early last week, one of the bigger counties around here, they said that their sports will be suspended until the middle of January. So all basketball, all wrestling, no practices, no matches, no games, no nothing. Bam, everything's done until middle of January. And then yesterday, Montgomery County, the other one, which is like it's like the fifth highest taxed. They collect more taxes than like anybody in the U.S. Like I think like third or fourth. Same thing over there. They basically canceled it until January 3rd because they're worried about the risks of people going home. And although we haven't been told cancel Christmas, kind of seems like no one's saying it, but at the same time, they're saying that's what they're so concerned about is because everybody's going to go home. They're going to be in close proximity.
Families want to get together. You bet.
Yeah.
We're
So
gonna
I mean,
it's not going to be pretty. We're already seeing the East Coast is getting hammered right now.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you know my family situation. My oldest son has COVID right now. No symptoms whatsoever, so he's totally fine. But again, he was in close proximity last week in school. We've made it a year and a half with no phone calls that either of my two sons was anywhere. But last week it's like, hey, he was in close proximity, him and a couple other people, to a kid that tested positive, and he tested. The whole rest of the family is fine, even though we were around him. So at least there's that. But it's out there, people are seeing it, and this is our first kind of family experience with it. But the news is just completely dominated with it. And when, we were told we are not locking down again, that's not going to happen. We're not going to do that with the economy. But look where we are now. We're
other parts of the globe are starting to, dabble in those waters. Because they're kind of being forced to. All right, let's jump over. Let's take a look at obviously with that, oil's getting crushed. Do you want to do equities first? We can do equities first.
Yeah, I'll start with equities first because the VIX, I think, is really going to be where the story is because oil is a byproduct of everything else we're seeing. But again, lockdown fears, and you mentioned being forced, countries are being forced to raise interest rates because inflation is so high. Imagine tacking the super high inflation on with a lockdown again, which will also occur. That's why this is up. The VIX is up 20.5%. That is an enormous move in the VIX. That's enormous. Because of that, you can see that all the indices are down. The strongest one right now is the Dow, 1.26. The weakest, obviously, is going to be the Russell. Huge gap to the top side. And it really doesn't matter which one we talk about. I mean, you're just seeing them grind lower, and lower. ES, we actually talked about a position. And again, I'd like to review this too, guys, because last week we talked about how it was basically the same setup. We had these levels of buyers, but none of them were great if we had kind of a breakthrough and a pullback. Everybody knows you buy on the pullback, right? Well, here's the pullback in the ES. I would say the ES being at 45.50 right now. It's at a good point. And again, the Europeans beat it up in the overnight. Question is, looking at all the news, there's probably going to be another surge to the downside just because everybody hasn't had the opportunity to sell it yet. NQ, again, it's been bouncing off all these levels. You can see hiccup here, same buyers, hiccup here, and now it's used that as a top. Next kind of slowing point for the NQ is 15,400. We have Apple gapping lower. We have Tesla gapping lower. So NQ looks like a great short at the open.
Yeah,
the
by the way,
is another one.
People are all talking about how the Dow is dropping. Oh my God, the Dow is dropping. And you got the Dow up there, and the headlines that you see out there,
it's
Dow down over 400. It's down 1.2%. That's not good. It's the Nasdaq. Nasdaq down 1.5%. So
Russell at 1.7. Yeah. And guys, here with an easy one. And like I said, people are always like, yeah, I mean, it dropped. How do I missed it. How do I get in? And one of the things I mentioned last week, and you guys know that I love using alerts in my trading. And again, I got 4 kids. One of them's a baby, so he doesn't do a whole lot. Yesterday I was cooking, I can't say shepherd's pie because it was not lamb, but it was cottage pie. Same idea yesterday for my wife because she really loves it. And after the long week and everything, I'm making that. And all of a sudden, bam, I get an email yesterday. Here's a position that we talked about setting up in the YM, right, in the Dow. We talked about a racetrack. This is why it's so important to draw these things on your charts. I had no idea what was going on in the market. I was, like I said, I was making, dinner for her, my mom. I knew we had a racetrack scenario there. I got this email last night at 6:15 p.m. We had set this during our session on Friday that, hey, listen, if the Dow breaks 13,126, there's a potential Harry Potter there. Why? Because we knew that we had a racetrack scenario where the last time it spiked through with no buyers. Here is that exact Harry Potter trade. And again, I could do it on the 15, but we don't only really need it. You guys see the pattern right here? This is that exact trade. Pushed down, it based in one candle, came back up, touched it, and boom, off to the races. All right. Now look at that on a Nadex chart. I'm going to pull Nadex in right here.
I've got it right there.
There you go. Right? If you pull it up, I have the strikes. I think you can see it from there.
Okay.
I only pulled up. There you go. There are the strikes. So again, Sunday night, there's 1,000,000 daily strikes done, right? 1,000,000 daily strikes. There's the pullback level. So we talk about getting something that's a little bit farther out of the money. Let's see. We started here. This was the at the money, right when it pulled back, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10, and price continued to go lower.
And went lower.
So yeah, it went even lower. And even right now, we're stuck at that second to last one. We haven't even had the open. I mean, I don't know that the market's going to surge. Whatever it's going to be like, woo, Omicron, right? I don't think we're having that. But we're 10 strikes down. Obviously, there's 7 hours to go. But if you had got something rather cheap early on, I mean, we went over 10 strike prices to the downside. Would there have been the ability to get something for maybe $20 risk and maybe taking it off for $60 or $70 when it went all the way down here past? Yeah. So this is how you guys set things up. Do the analysis, figure out how to not be married to a chart, get something like an alert like this where you could be doing anything and all of a sudden I got an email on my phone. It says, hey, alert triggered. And then bam. Where's the next platform? There you go. Right there. Again, simple overnight based trade. Okay. So you wake up and you're like, oh my God, look at that. It went all the way down. I put my, my profit target order in there and it took it out. So every single day, guys, these opportunities exist. I would say right now, again, we're talking about oil. Oil is a huge one. And again, it's purely driven right now by Omicron. And the reason why is look at natural gas. Natural gas is also supply and demand driven. Natural gas is up 3.6%.
That's because it's cold out.
Up a huge
we
amount.
all need heat.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, and the crazy thing is here's the European market. The European market has done nothing but kind of go down, back up, and right back down again. But again, it started in the overnight. And, we talked about a level here. We're looking to potentially short from, and it hit it 1, 2, 3, like at least 4 times here. Look at that. Sliced right through, pulled right back up to that old level, and then continuing to push much lower in oil. 100% demand driven. So right now, I would say, we had a target down here. We were looking for 67, 67. If I extend that across, you can see that it ended up slicing through that and kind of using it as a bit of a base. I would say right now, the next target area to the downside that I have is really down at that 66 level. Obviously,
how far back does that go?
Not that far.
Oh, no, that's right, because we had that watch.
December 3rd. Right. Yeah. We do know. Let me see. Let me put a horizontal line across. Here's where the gap occurred. Right there. I'm marking that. It's probably not the best area, but so it looks like right now. Really, I mean, we had to push down, but looks like 66.50 to 66.25 is an area where we probably have some buyers stepping in. It was a gap. There was an imbalance on price, and we did launch from higher than that. But really, looking back to anything below that, we're talking profit target would be here. Let's see. We are talking 65, 64 is really the first kind of clean, like, hey, that's a great, that's a nice buying area. So we got that there, and we have the gap sitting right there. So there's 2 levels where I would say, hey, listen, we probably have something going on. And again, a lot of that is going to be, it's not uncommon for the European market to send oil down before we get there. Again, U.S. trader steps in, we tend to see more rallies in oil. So, like I said, it's really, really far behind natural gas. Natural gas is just off to the right. I mean, a gap lower into an area of buyers and took off. This is, again, supply and demand. How the heck is this up? Because you're right, it's cold, and then down, and then at the same time, gold absolutely flat. Gold doing nothing.
No, so doing absolutely nothing.
And again, the currency market doing nothing. So this is purely lockdown fears with things like retail sales, and again, supply and demand driven fear right now is all that this market is. So again, look for kind of a crazy open. Doesn't look too positive.
Can we just take a quick peek at the Aussie dollar, because I know that tonight at 7:30 they got their monetary policy meeting. Let's just close and take a peek at that if there's anything.
Yeah. So the big question today is, and again, right now, looking at the dollar, because again, you're going to have to compare it against the dollar. The dollar is getting some weakness. And again, typically we see European weakness in the dollar, and then the U.S. trader steps in and punches it higher. We did have this little ping pong effect back and forth where we kind of hit the 46.40, drop back down again, and then use that to launch higher. We're a little bit past that right now. The big question about this one is, what is the market going to do today with it? We're obviously 12 hours ahead of time, so it's going to be a little bit difficult. Right now, it's going to be dominated by the U.S. trader opening up the market. But the good thing is, and again, let me see, let's drag this down. We were using that earlier. Yeah, there's a fib level right in there. So we had a Harry Potter level established at 71.46. If we continue to drive higher today, I would assume, okay, now this is just an assumption. I don't have a crystal ball. I would assume that the news is going to be positive for the Aussie later today. Every other country has talked about rising interest rates. The one kind of caveat to this one is the Omicron fear. right? Everybody's been raising, but now this week Omicron is back again, supposedly in force. So is that going to slow or taper down their statement? And at
Right.
the same time, is that what the entire market is thinking? Is the entire market thinking that, hey, listen, they're not going to say anything important because of Omicron? The reality is, we don't really know what the full implications of Omicron are. We do know that inflation is here in force. So that is something that they do have to handle. Remember, a lot of these central banks, they're focusing kind of on now and then forecasting. Everything we've been told is, yeah, Omicron's spreading, but it's more mild. It's the mutation down the road that we really need to worry about, right? So, with that said, we're really going to have to look at this. There are a number of different levels in the Aussie dollar over here in this entire step down. Again, the 50 is sitting right around that 71.50 range. I would say 71.50 is probably a decent sell level. Aussie Yen is also the same way. There's a number of different areas here. It had a nice little bounce and then kind of a pullback, and then it used that level for another short over the weekend. But kind of the same thing, right? There's a few different levels in here. I would say the 81.57 if we can rally all the way up there. But if not, if we start to get this to pull back down again, we're looking for small bases here. And again, unfortunately, there's not a lot of great bases right now. It'll be something that's established during the day. But the way to play this tonight for this monetary policy meeting notes, again, use that shorter duration contract. The spread width is small. If it's on binaries, it'll be smaller movement required inside of the call spreads. I would probably not use a knockout because I don't think we'll get as much movement out of it. And then again, once we roll in tomorrow, it's a completely new day. So it's going to have to be purely based off of the policy notes. But again, everybody's policy notes have been the same. We have to curb inflation. We have to rise interest rates. Tapering is occurring. And again, Australia should be no different. So,
Yep.
like I said, a lot of it's going to be dictated by where the media runs and the headlines that we see today all around Omicron.
All right. With that, any questions for Nadex, please email us, customer service at nadex.com. Any questions for Brian, you can catch him at support@keeptradingsimple.com. We are having a lot of volatility here this morning. As a quick recap, oil down on fears that demand is going to go down with uh, countries starting to go back into lockdown mode around Omicron. Equities all looking to open lower, and we do have that trade set up for this evening. If 7:30 this evening, check out that Aussie dollar. There might be some potential opportunity there when they release their monetary policy minutes. With that, Brian and I will be back tomorrow morning, and I do want to remind everyone that this Thursday, PCE, personal consumption expenditure, the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. Thursday's the day is going to be an interesting day. So we're probably going to have some thin, highly volatile markets all week long. Means trading opportunity. We will catch you again tomorrow morning. Thank you so much for joining, and good luck in the markets.